Hey guys, this is Matt Core from ctrl+paint.com, and today we're going to continue working on this complicated background using some unexpected techniques, and specifically we're going to make some ladders. Now when I go about making these ladders, you'll notice last time we started with these boring placeholders, but specifically these boring placeholders are smart objects. And that's important because that means each one is going to be controlled by this master document. So anything I paint in this brown rectangle is going to be distributed down to all of the spots that you see it in our canvas. Now you'll notice that this image is actually not very large. It's only 77 pixels wide. So for me, I'm going to actually make this 200% size just for now. What that does is give me a little more to work with, and then I'm going to have to make sure to reduce it back to that original size before I save. Because if I were to save it this big, it would make each of these double size. We don't want that. So when I work with something like this, I'm first looking at reference. It's very important. And even though this is a painting, I don't necessarily always use the brush tool. So a ladder, for example, is pretty much straight lines and circles. So it kind of makes sense to just use the line tool. So here you'll see I can just use the line tool to make my verticals. Now I need to make my little steps on the ladder. So I'm just going to make one of them, duplicate it a couple times. And this can quickly add up to be all of my ladder rungs. Now, if you get too many of them, no problem. You can just make a selection, do layer via cut, and then delete the rest. Now, I do want to adjust the perspective on these ladder rungs a little bit. So I'm going to use free transform and just sort of skew that up a bit. So you can see they are flat at the bottom of the ladder, and then as it approaches the sky, they get a little more skewed. Now the final part of this is I want to make the sort of structural rings. And the rings all have to be an equivalent thickness, but I know that they're going to have a different degree as they go up towards the sky because of perspective. So this is a great opportunity to use the shape tool with a 3-pixel stroke. Really anything will do, but for me this just means that it'll be consistent line weight. So if I zoom in here, you can see when I pick my ellipse tool and I make my first ring, I can control the line weight here with this slider independently from the shape. So I want to make sure it's black in color. And now it's just a matter of cloning. And I know that at the top of my ladder, the degree is going to be the highest, probably about like that. And then at the bottom of my ladder, near the horizon line, it's going to be the flattest. And the really nice thing here is that it doesn't lose any of that line weight thickness as I shrink it down. And because it's vector, I can do this as much as I want and it's never going to degrade in quality. So at this point, I can flatten these all together to be a single layer. And if I hide the background, you can see it does indeed have transparent background. Now at any time I could save, and this will be imported back into my image. But what I want to do is just change the color a little bit. So what I'm going to start with is a new layer, which I set to be a clipping mask. And then I'm just going to paint with sort of a warm gray to match my surroundings a little bit more. And because of the clipping mask, I don't need to worry about painting on the background. So here I'm essentially separating shape from fill. The fill can be any number of layers. Here I could paint with a bright color if I wanted to put on stripes. Really anything is easy because the clipping mask just means I don't have to paint outside of those lines. So when I'm happy with this, I need to remember to hide my background because I want it to be transparent. And then with image size, I'm going to go back 50%. So now it's back to the original dimensions. So I'll just hit save. And you can see my image has those ladders exactly where they're supposed to be. Now the really nice thing with this is that I can still adjust the perspective of these ladders independently. So if I wanted to skew this to match the silo a little bit, it's not going to change the contents at all. And it's also non-destructive. So in this way, you get sort of the safety of working on your perspective with free transform. And then if I wanted to change the way all of them looked, maybe I don't want those orange stripes or something like that, well, then I can just go back to that original, modify it a little bit, and all of them will update. So here I've made ladders. You could do this exact same process with any number of detail elements. Really, if you look at things that are man-made, there's a lot more repetition than you think there is. So why not take advantage of that? So stick with me, and the rest of this series will continue using some unexpected techniques to finish out this detailed background. Thanks for coming to the site, guys.